Greetings and salutations, guys. Welcome back to the Underbudget AV. This is your main man, JV, or you can call me Jules Vincent. It doesn't really matter. This is just me today. This is something I come up with recently. I'm gonna call this a freestyle because it's off the top. This is me just covering some particular part of a movie or some particular subject matter or element of cinema off the top of my head without any like notes or anything. So let's try this out and see how terrible it is. Let's roll it. For this freestyle, we're gonna talk about something that's kind of been on my mind lately. I recently just watched The Handmaiden by the guy that made this movie. Now, if you haven't been living under a rock, you know who this is. You know, you've seen Old Boy, and you probably only seen Old Boy. You may have seen his other two movies that I love, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, I think is what they're called, the Vengeance trilogy. They're really good. They still have that same guy, Odesu, and I want to say 2 out of the 3 of them, Lady Vengeance being my favorite, Mr. Vengeance being damn good, but a little bit of a taste. And that just made me want to talk about like foreign films, period. You know, going into foreign films, what to like expect, or you know, even if you don't understand the culture, you know, how to get into foreign films. So when you're going into a foreign film, you know, like this or like that or like one of these, and you don't understand everything into a foreign film, right? You don't understand all of Korean culture. You don't understand all of Japanese culture. Perfect example, Antiporno, because that one I know you guys have seen if you've been following this channel. Watching that the first time, because I watched it myself before I watched it with Dune, I didn't get it, right? I didn't pick it up until maybe about like halfway through the film. And this is coming from me, which if you don't know, I'm a huge movie buff. I mean, like I said, I pick most of the films for these. And we're not even close to digging into my catalog of stuff. That's weird. I've been finding most of this stuff offhand, like for the show. Just really testing my my film palette, my cinematographic palette. I like that, cinematographic palette. That's flowish. But for Antiporno, there's really no way of you really getting that at first, right? Unless you're familiar with the culture. And for that to be the central meaning of the entire film, the central like purpose of everything going on, and the odd imagery and the fact that it's a porn movie in itself, which uses women as like basically just playthings as entertainment, which is a perfect metaphor. I mean, applaud science, I don't know for that, but you're not gonna get that offhand, which is per usual, you know what I mean? So when you see stuff like this, you don't immediately think like, oh, okay, well, they're treating women as dogs because, you know, dogs are beneath you as man's best friend, you know what I mean? You don't think that. You don't think that at all, right? Because you don't know the culture. So this is not where I come to you and say, oh, well, if you want to watch foreign films, then you need to get more worldly. No, you become more worldly watching foreign films, to be honest. You have to look at those things like you're American, to be honest. A lot of the imagery, the techniques that you see in films, you know, animals, colors, cross borders pretty easily. But even if you don't know the culture itself, right? Even if you don't know, like, okay, dogs, man, best friend, even if you don't like got bars, right? You know what I mean? Because I do have a little bit shortcut. I am a writer. I do write that kind of stuff. I write comic books, not movies, not raps. Get it right. But you can still approach a film that you don't understand. Like, so I'm gonna use Korean films as an example because it's kind of part of my journey getting into Korean films. When I saw The Wailing, right? I'm gonna use 2 examples. The Wailing, which is a movie I haven't watched on the channel yet, but I'm gonna try to give you like a brief rundown of what it's about. It's about basically, and I'm not gonna bore you guys. Let me show you some imagery. So The Wailing is about basically Japanese versus Korean culture as far as, you know, poltergeist, ghosts, and like basically supernatural culture, and the distrust that goes between Koreans and Japanese people. That's kind of what the deeper social political things are going on in the movie. You can watch that movie completely without knowing that, right? You can watch that movie completely without knowing that, and it will kind of a little bit educate you on not why, like you don't have to know like that they used to occupy Korea and all that other stuff. You don't have to know that. You don't have to know why these cultures don't get along, but you'll kind of give you a nod to that, right? So when you go into another film, like when you go watch a movie that I just recently watched, The Handmaiden, watch that. It's on Netflix. It's amazing. It's by the guy that made the Old Boy trilogy. You can kind of pick up on a lot of the kind of tension between those two cultures because you've watched The Wailing. You've been steeped in this culture. So you can learn the culture by watching a movie, and just apply American culture to it and try to figure it out as best as you can. A lot of good filmmakers know how to make their film for both. And even if the movie isn't necessarily for your nationality, like Antiporno is, it does, a lot of those problems kind of transpose over. Like, nah, we don't have that same exact type of culture as you do in Japan. But in America, we sexualize women. You know what I mean? Women's rights is a hot debate, whether you want to go left or right. It doesn't matter. We're not gonna get political on this, even though we usually get political on this. And that movie is political, and we did talk about political shit in it. Well, what the fuck ever. But you know what I mean? You can get hip to that. You can subscribe to that if you want to. Blah 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 blah. Move on. Next one. So this movie doesn't need an introduction. You've seen this movie. Yeah. Okay, right. So you've seen this. You know this movie. Parasite. Bong Joon-ho. Snowpiercer. Okja. Never seen Okja. It's too bright. I like my movies dark and depressing. But even if you don't know about the class struggles between rich Koreans and not rich and like lower class rich Koreans and what the rock means and blah 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 whatever, right? And smell, like and then like the physical separation of these people, you know what I mean, and are like the ideology of Seoul versus the rest of Korea, like blah. You don't really have to know all that, and to be honest, not knowing that can kind of enhance the movie for you. So let me give you a little bit of context for your uninformed state. So if you ever wondered why the rich people in that movie are so kind of off-putting and so strange, you can get this fake kind of uncomfortable feeling from these people, from their environment, from their house. You know why? Because it has this really, really clean, fashionable, semi-fashionable architecture. Now you would think like, okay, well that's just, for the movie. But no, that's actually a kind of trademark of like your mainstream Korean films, mainstream Korean dramas. If you watched Welcome to My 20s or Crash Landing on You, which is just fucking amazing, you've seen this style before. But if you've never seen this, it can be a little bit off-putting because nothing in America comes off this clean, if that makes sense, besides like a hospital or something that's really supposed to be off-putting, like, your Get Outs or something like that, where we're supposed to question everything around it because it's too perfect. Where in Korea, it's kind of supposed to be like that. Like Koreans portray this perfection at all given times. Like if you look at their singers, their actors, their culture, their movies, they're always trying to portray this perfect cultural side to them, right? So that like when we see that, it just seems fake to us, right? Because our mainstream stuff is always kind of gritty, right? It's always kind of gritty. Like if you're comparing like apples to apples, if you're comparing like dramas to dramas for American, well, no, I guess unless you're talking about soap operas are always kind of weird. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and compare it to something like Juno or Scott Pilgrim. You know what I mean? Another romance type thing as part of like K-dramas and stuff. They're always kind of scrappy. Or like even like High School Musical, if you want to be like that. They're always kind of scrappy. They're always kind of quippy. They always kind of have a little bit of attitude, a little bit of sass to them. they're not overly fashionable, not overly too cool. They're kind of normal, kind of down to earth, and that's kind of what they go for. When you see these two characters, the rich versus the poor family, you automatically gravitate towards the poor family because they actually are more of an American style family. And without you even knowing the class struggle, the movie itself goes out of its way with its imagery to beat you over the head with the difference between these two classes by putting them up on the hill and putting these people not only in the basement, at the bottom of a large set of stairs that's beautifully shot. Their houses like in a sub-basement where, you know, we really can't even empathize with that type of poverty. You know what I mean? With that imagery of poverty. You can look at the hood, but the hood doesn't look like that. You know what I mean? And the hood is actually will be a great way to portray that. And it is, but I guess you could say, the Korean version of the hood. But for the typical American, that's kind of much more palatable. It's much more American. It's very dark. It's kind of gritty. It fits our taste. And the characters do that too. That's why I chose Michael Cera and Juno's type of stuff, because they have that same kind of quippy dialogue, you know, from Jessica's Illinois Chicago song. You know, the
잠깐. 제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김진모 그는 네 사촌.
Right, it's catchy, right? You know, the banter, the use of vulgarity in their dialogue. It's American as fuck.
When I see them all running like that with their things bouncing around in their shorts, I always picture them naked, even if I don't want to. All I see is pork swords.
Right, it's American as fuck, and you can get it because it feels like home, like American's curse. But you don't see that much in K-pop and in, you know, K-dramas. So I guess I'm saying all this to say, when you go into a foreign film, or when you start trying to explore foreign films, and I could definitely suggest you some foreign films, don't be too scared about not understanding the culture entirety. I mean, go ahead and try it out. Go ahead and try to figure out if you can see what everything goes on. I'm never going to tell you not to do research and look into directors and find stuff, because that's how you'll find more movies that you'll love, bro. Like, find you a director and then fuck with their bodies of work. I mean, that's why I fell in love with Rob Pat, because I basically love every time he's in any other movie besides fucking Twilight and that one when he was in 9/11. But I digress. Do your research if you want to, but don't be afraid to go into shit completely blind and not understanding shit. Because that's how you learn how to understand shit. And that's where we're at, right? We're not snooty motherfuckers. We want everybody to get these films. Even if they are snooty, high class, you know, deep imagery, art house ass movies. We want you to feel as comfortable with these movies as you would any other movies. Because, hey, well-made movies are good. Thanks for stopping by. I see you guys at the next meeting. We're gonna have regular stuff. This is just me just covering a topic that I felt like. So if you liked it, let me know. And while you're at it, let me know if there's any foreign films that you guys like. You know what I mean? Anything that you were like, I love this movie, or I don't understand this culture. Discuss it at the bottom, because I want to go down there and talk movies with you guys, like real talk, not like on some YouTuber shit. I love talking about movies, and my friends don't watch movies as much as I do. I'm kind of alone in this. So if you've seen The Handmaiden, let's talk about it. Did you enjoy the scenes? Did you enjoy the scenes? Like the scenes. If you haven't seen The Handmaiden, then I'm not going to tell you what the fuck the scenes are, but they're some quality scenes, you know what I mean? Hopefully we'll watch it on the channel eventually, if Lee's down for it, because that's probably her thing. So I'll see you guys at the next meeting. Peace.